Good day everyone! I'm Bebs Hearty Joy Ango and today I will be talking about the Englishes of the Subcontinent. This chapter will be demonstrating the extraordinary range of varieties and functions of Indian English. A brief comparison between the history of English in India and Sri Lanka and the rich output of Indian English literature. But before that, let's have these examples of varieties of English spoken in South Asia, ranging from an informal pidgin-like oral variety to an informal literary variety. Everybody, please read. The variety exemplified in B is commonly referred to as Butler English and originates from the variety spoken by native servants when communicating with their English-speaking masters. It is still spoken today by domestic and other servants and is classified as pidgin-like by Husserl. C is taken from a teenage journal and shows the presence of local language. In this case, Hindi, which gave its Indian flavor. Damal is a Sanskrit word that traditionally meant a type of Sufi trance dance, and now just means a type of dance. Bikaar Bakra means a poor goat in Hindi. D also shows the use of Hindi words. But in this conversation, the Hindi words that have been transferred into English are discourse markers rather than cognates. Ki is a complementizer, and in this context, matlab is acting as a pause or hesitation marker. Text E is an excerpt from the novel I Shall Not Hear the Nightingale by the Sikh author Khushwant Singh. The ingenious of this extract stems from the author's use of traditional Sikh greetings. Sat Sri Akal, which means God is truth, is a formulaic greetings or farewell. In her analysis of this piece, Kosh wrote in the year 1991 points out that the exchange suggests that the mother-in-law is cool toward her daughter-in-law precisely because they exchange only these formulaic greetings. This piece reflects local cultures. A foreign reader unfamiliar with Indian cultures would probably not receive this message of coolness between the two women. Excerpt F is the final passage of Naik and Narayan's book on Indian English literature. This type of style can be considered Indian, a style that might be described as ornate or flowery. Its extended use of metaphor and its bookishness give it this flavor. The final text G is a poem called The Cobra. This poem is one of the Sri Lanka's finest poets, Lakdasha Wickramasinha, and it is one of the poems that you can hear read by the Sri Lankan scholar Thiro Kandiya on the accompanying CD. Paramintas and disciples Buddhists are expected to observe on their way to nirvana. Wickramasinghe died tragically young, and despite writing all his 6 volumes of poetry in English, apparently hated himself for writing in English. The excerpt of different varieties of South Asian English quoted above serve to support the truism that South Asian English is general and Indian English in particular is a network of varieties that include regional and occupational varieties as well as standard Indian English. One reason for these network varieties is that the linguistic situation in India is extraordinarily complex. Mirothra describes India as a baffling mosaic of multilingualism. He reports that the 1961 census of India identified 1,652 mother tongues, 67 of which are used as media of instruction in schools. The Indian constitution lists of the following 18 languages as the major languages of India: Assamese, Bengali, Gujarati, Hindi, Kannada, Kashmiri, Konkani, Malayalam, Manipuri, Marathi, Nepali, Oriya, Punjabi, Sanskrit, Sindhi, Tamil, Telugu, and Urdu. Hindi is the official language, yet the constitution is actually written in English, and English is classified as an associate official language. It is used by people of all classes, from the poorly educated to the middle and upper class elites, although it must be stressed that the majority of the population of more than 1 billion do not speak it at all. English in India operates thus in public and private domains, and its functions include instrumental, regulative, interpersonal, and ideational. This time let us proceed to the history of English in India. The date commonly given to mark the coming of English to India in 31st December 1600. This was the date on which Queen Elizabeth I of England gave a monopoly on trade with India to a group of English merchants. The missionaries soon followed, especially after 1659, when they were allowed to use the ships for the East India Company. However, their work was restricted until the beginning of the 19th century, when a resolution was passed in the British House of Commons in 1813 that resolved to promote useful knowledge and religious and moral improvement among the native inhabitants of India. Shortly later, the famous Macaulay Minute of 1835 was passed. Macaulay's objective was to form a class who may be interpreters and a class of persons, Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinion, in moral, and in intellect. This minute officially institutionalized in English in India and led to the establishment of the English medium universities of Mumbai, Calcutta, and Madras. The link between government and trade can be seen here, as these were the cities where the British East India Company had established key presences. At that time, however, the policy of flavoring English and using it in education was not universally popular. Two groups appeared that became known as the Anglicists, those who are favored the promotion of English, especially in education, and Orientalists, those who favor the promotion of local languages. The debate in India between these two groups has remained constant and heated over the centuries, but by and large, the Anglicists have tended to retain the upper hand. As can be seen in the Official Language Act of 1967, this legalized the use of English and established it as an associate official language to be used in Hindi for all official purposes of the Union, for Parliament, and for communications between the Union and the states. In order to enhance national unity and facilitate intrastate, interstate, and international communication, the government has adopted the three languages formula. This formula requires that children in Hindi-speaking areas should learn Hindi, English, and one other Indian language at school, while children in non-Hindi-speaking areas should learn their mother tongue, Hindi, and English. In practice, however, this formula has not been uniformly successful. States has been given the freedom to introduce the third language at any time, and this has meant that the results are extremely mixed. It is probably true to say that the Indian film industry, Bollywood, is as instrumental in making Hindi known to people outside Hindi-speaking areas as schools. Otherwise, English is preferred to Hindi among the speakers of the Dravidian languages of the south. Hindi is spoken only in the north and is a member of a different language family. Not surprisingly, perhaps, Hindi-speaking states are sometimes uncommitted to the teaching of a second Indian language, with the result that many Hindi speakers speak only Hindi and English with any degree of fluency. States also have the power to decide which language or languages will be official language and which will be studied as first, second, or third languages. Thus, English is the first official language of Nagaland and an associate official language of Manipur, Meghalaya, and Mizoram. It is studied as first language in Arunachal Prasad and Mizoram. As a second language is Kerala and West Bengal, and as a third language in Bihar and Punjab. A major reason why English has retained its position is that it is the only language in India that is spoken and used across the entire country, and it is therefore an obvious choice as a neutral link language or lingua franca. De Sora goes as far to say that English is perhaps, along with Hindi, the only true Indian language. This time, let's go to Sri Lanka. One similarity in India is that it was the missionaries who started the teaching of English. It was not until the 1830s that the government started to promote education in English, with the Colebrook Cameron Commission recommending that education should be held out to the natives so that they may in time qualify themselves for holding some of the higher appointments. In 1832, some 640 private and 236 missionary schools were using English as a medium of instruction, while only the 97 state schools were teaching in the mother tongue. The culmination of British education policy came with the establishment of the English Medium University of Ceylon in 1942. By that time of Ceylon's independence and renaming as Sri Lanka in 1948, however, the situation had radically changed, as only 7% of the total school population were in private or missionary schools and 93% were in state schools using mother tongue as a medium of instruction. There are only two major languages spoken in Sri Lanka: the language of the majority, Sinhala, and the language of the minority, Tamil. The majority are thus able to define the national identity of Sri Lanka through the use of Sinhala and the religion of the majority of Sinhalese, Buddhism. Thus, shortly after the establishment of Sri Lankan independence in 1948, a Sinhala-only policy was introduced, and this led to the rise of a new national bourgeoisie occupying positions that had previously been held by the English-speaking elite. It was being claimed that this new Sinhala-speaking elite has no desire to promote English, as the promotion of English might lead to a new English-speaking elite that could threaten their own status. It also operates as a lingua franca or bridge between the Sinhala majority and the Tamil minority. For while some Tamil speakers know Sinhala, a few Sinhala speakers know Tamil. Its rolling language was officially recognized in 1987 and in 1995. It was proclaimed a national language. The linguistic features of South Asian English's phonology. In Indian English, it is rothic, that is to say, R or Rs is produced in a post-vocalic environment so that the R in part and in poor will be sounded. Lexis. Influence of the local languages also leads to what Cashro has been hybridization, whereby a local word and an English word combine to form a word or expression of Indian English. Syntax. Kasher 1983 identifies three features of Indian English that are shared with many other varieties. The first is the distinctive use or non-use of articles. The second is the reduplication of words, and the third is yes-no confusion. The syntactic feature most associated with Indian English is the use of present continuous in context, where other varieties would use the simple present. This use is particularly remarkable with the verb of sense, a knowing and stative verb, as they do not take the present continuous in the same context. Cultural conventions. Indian English speakers use direct questions and desiderative statements more frequently than speakers of British English and use indirect question less frequently. Second, the request strategies of Indian English speakers are transferred from local languages. Third, a British form in an Indian context may carry a different meaning. For example, the use of will you might be seen as abrupt or even rude in British context, but not so in an Indian one. And lastly, there is a variety among the request strategies of Indian English speakers. Indian literature in English. There are authors agree that English can be adapted to suit and reflect Indian culture. As South Asians, they can write in English to express South Asian experience. They extol the creative and flexible qualities of English. However, there are some people or author who express strong antagonism toward the use of English from Sri Lanka, a place where English had a very different history from its history in India. It is important to consider the possibility that while writers can adapt English to reflect their own cultural backgrounds, many may at the same time feel a resentment that they feel obliged to use English as a medium in which to write and thought which they need to gain or disseminate learning. There are two major disadvantages of Indian and Sri Lankans. First, their own traditional knowledge paradigms have become devalued. Second, they have to master a new knowledge paradigm and its attendant rhetorical style in order to obtain currently valued knowledge. This, in turn, means that the flow and dissemination of knowledge can potentially become dangerously one-way, moving from the Anglo center to the periphery. While acknowledging the inherent danger and injustice in this, it is possible that, in the same way that English has been adapted to reflect local culture experience, it can be similarly shaped to disseminate local and traditional knowledge back to the Anglo Center and thus encourage a multi-directional flow of knowledge. The extraordinary increase in interest in the US and elsewhere in the traditional Indian practice of yoga and in the traditional Sri Lankan practice of Ayurvedic medicine may give some cause for optimism that traditional knowledge will not be lost, but rather spread to a wider audience. The related question of whether the knowledge necessary becomes altered when reframed in English needs to be researched.
Thanks for watching.